Welcome to Tom's Messiaen vlog, episode 16. And it's been a while. This, if you like, is Tom's Messiaen vlog The Return. Tom's Messiaen vlog The Reboot. It's a good 18 months plus since the last episode was recorded. And the vlog is back with a slightly expanded purpose. And so let me explain that to you. So if you've watched the other episodes, you'll know that the original purpose of the vlog was to serve as a video diary and a means of discussing Messiaen's music more generally, but chiefly a video diary about my learning of the Livre de Saint-Sacrement, that vast cycle, and I was working towards a performance of that piece at Westminster Cathedral. Where we left things with the vlog was the Westminster performance had been postponed, and I initially performed the piece in the end at Blackburn Cathedral, just down the road from where I live up here in Lancashire. And so the last blog post I recorded was from Blackburn as I was rehearsing there. The Westminster Cathedral performance did take place, by the way, in April of last year, 2022. And one of my regrets is that I didn't record a vlog post from the rehearsal sessions there. It would have been interesting to have talked about registration, for example. But to be honest with you, when you're rehearsing at 2 o'clock in the morning, choosing stops, the prospect of having to do one's hair and think about saying something cogent into a camera was just slightly beyond me. So I didn't record a vlog post, and I apologise for that. Anyway, there's a number of things to say. So this vlog now is going to continue to talk about Messiaen, of course, but to explore more broadly all of his organ music. I'm not setting out to cover absolutely everything, although in time, maybe, who knows, maybe I will. Specifically at the moment, I've got a few projects on the go for 2023. A major one is a recording project with Fugue State Films, a DVD about Messiaen. It won't just feature me, it'll involve his biographer Christopher Dingle and organists from La Trinité. I will be playing and speaking as well, but there are others involved. And the RCO has a degree of involvement with it as well. There will be bespoke RCO footage and material that will go on IRCO. My contribution in terms of playing to that project will be the Livre de Saint-Sacrement, recorded at La Trinité, which is exciting, and L'Ascension, and the Messe Le Pentecôte, and Le Banquet Céleste. So a lot of music to talk about. So initially, at least, the vlog will cover issues pertaining to those pieces, perhaps. But also I'm playing La Nativité at the end of this year somewhere else, and I would like to find an excuse to learn the Meditation of 1969, which I've never played. It's the only cycle I've not done. So perhaps in due course I'll get to address those pieces as well. Anyway, so far I have talked about me and where I'm at and what I'm doing, and reintroduced the vlog. I think it would be nice to talk a little bit about music in this first post of the new version of the vlog. So what I wanted to talk about was just a couple of Messiaen's really slow pieces. Now, this ecstatically slow, extremely slow music he wrote throughout his life. It's one of the things I think people who don't know much about Messiaen aren't as interested about Messiaen's music as I am. It's one of the features of his writing that they will know about. The bird song's famous, and the very slow, lush, beautiful pieces are also famous. And Le Banquet Céleste, one of the very early organ pieces, the second half of Diptyque, another early organ piece, both have that characteristic. They're that incredibly slow music. L'Ascension has 2 movements out of its 4 that fit into that bracket as well, and there are many other examples. Just think, for example, 2 movements from the quartet for the End of Time, one of which is that second half of Diptyque transcribed. Think of the 6th movement of Turangolila Symphony, and so on and so on. Livre de Saint-Sacrement movements 14 and 16 fit into that mould as well. So this is something Messiaen does right the way through. Every now and again he writes a piece of this ilk. They're interesting to play, probably for anybody on any instrument, or for any conductor. They're an interesting thing to deal with, because the tempi are so slow, and there's a question of how slow, and so on and so forth. But it's particularly interesting on the organ, because if you think of the 6th movement of Turangolila Symphony, the strings play incredibly slow, lush, chorale-like music at an incredibly slow tempo. Okay, but there is movement from 2 sources. One is it's played by string instruments, and so the sound of each long note can develop and grow in a way that you can't really do that on the organ unless you use a swell box. But then also around that chorale, Messiaen provides other music on woodwind and piano and percussion and so on and so forth, birdsong and things like that. So there's other stuff kind of happening around the slowness. And if you take those two famous, gorgeous movements from the Quartet for the End of Time, you have long, slow melodic lines from the cello or from the violin, which again has movement and growth to it in a sense, because there's vibrato and so on and so forth. You can do something with the sound of those instruments while you're holding a long note, which you can't do on the organ, or at least you can't do so much on the organ. But underneath those long, slow lines, the piano part has a degree of movement, sort of, lightly sort of chugging chords or whatever. On the organ, when you play these really slow pieces, the music is often just completely static. Now, Le Banquet Celeste, here it is, Le Banquet Celeste has the quavers, the sort of water droplets in the pedal part to add movement, and I'll do a vlog post about that piece at some point. But the two outer movements of L'Ascension are just completely static. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about finding the right speed, really, and how to go about playing these pieces, because I think it's quite unnerving, actually, playing at such a slow tempo. There's a lot of time in which your brain, if you're not careful, can go to thoughts such as like, what are the audience thinking of this? Or what are the congregation making of this? I've sat on this chord now for however long. So one has to learn to inhabit these pieces. One of the things that's really struck me, as I've just said, is there's a level of confidence required that you might perhaps not expect, because technically they're quite easy. So the first movement of L'Ascension, this is a really interesting one. Messiaen says it should be très lent, very slow. And well, two things to say about that. One is that John Gillock, in his book about playing Messiaen's organ music, draws attention to the fact that the time signature is 12/8. So he suggests that what should be very slow is the dotted crotchet pulse. I'm not so sure. How do you play a really, really slow dotted crotchet pulse without the quavers becoming too fast? So, what would that be? That just about has a dotted crotchet pulse, does it? I don't know. You see, I think that's too fast. I really do think that's too fast. And what's instructive is in Le Banquet Celeste, which is not in compound time, it's not in 12/8, so, perhaps I'm comparing apples and pears here. But Messiaen says there, très lent, and he gives a metronome mark, or at least later in his life he did. I think in an earlier edition it didn't, but I might have that wrong. Certainly here, très lent in Le Banquet Celeste is quaver equals 52. And without wishing to be too pedantic about things, I just wanted to explore whether très lent, quaver equals 52, would work in this movement. So let's find out what quaver equals 52 sounds like first. Let's try that. That feels to me closer to how this piece should go. It needs to be completely still, and those vast silences and those long chords. So this is what I've gone for. I've gone for the time being at least, quaver equals 52. There's an issue with silence, by the way, where there isn't a great big echo. And you do hear people saying, well, you have to speed it up in a dry acoustic, because otherwise the silences are interminable. I'm really not sure about that, Maybe to a certain extent, but I think just sitting on these pieces and playing them incredibly slowly, and inhabiting those silences, it's really persuasive even in a dry acoustic. That's what I've found so far over the years. But anyway, perhaps, you know, by all means write in and let me know what you think. I'm happy to discuss this issue at greater length. Incidentally, when I'm playing that slowly, I do subdivide in my head. I count semiquavers when I'm playing slow quavers, or you know, Gillian Weir suggests counting triplets of some kind, just to give that greater sense of movement. So I quite like that, but you know, one way or another I subdivide in my head. Now, I'm holding something in reserve here. There's something I'm going to tell you in a minute, which will blow your mind, I'm quite sure. Let's move to the fourth movement. And here, it's not très long. He doesn't want it to be very slow. He wants it to be extremely slow. So that quaver pulse needs to be slower still. And here's the thing. John Scott Whiteley once told me that Nicholas Kynaston told him, presumably in a lesson, that Messiaen told him, that's Kynaston, that his preferred tempo, the composer's preferred tempo for this movement, is quaver equals 10. Quaver equals 10. Now, I have tried this. This piece typically lasts, you know, not far short of 10 minutes in the average performance. When you play it quaver equals 10, it lasts about 25 minutes. I've tried it. My goodness, I've tried it. So I mean, I don't have a metronome that goes down to quaver equals 10, funnily enough, but I mean, that's 40, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try it, okay? Hang on, I've got my maths wrong, haven't I? I've got my maths wrong. that's the opposite. That wasn't. So quaver equals 4. It's very warm outside. My brain's clearly gone mad. That was one quaver. There's another quaver. You ready for this? I mean, that is amazingly slow. It's got to be too slow because you lose the upward motion of those quavers. You know, composers say lots of things about how they want their music to go. You know, I completely respect the fact that Messiaen said quaver equals 10. I'm not so sure. But it's worth exploring. And if you play this piece, well, firstly, if you don't play this piece, go and listen to other performances of it, and then just come back to this blog post and listen to the first couple of bars again at that speed. But if you play the piece, just try it. You know, it's quite an experience. Interestingly, Messiaen said to Kynaston, who said to John Scott Whiteley, who said to me that his preferred tempo, Messiaen's preferred tempo for the first movement was quaver equals 30. So that is faster than at très long. That is faster than the extrêmement long. But nevertheless, let's just see what that sounds like. Let's go back to the first movement again. Okay, right, here we go. What do you think? I think that's too slow as well. So I just wanted to share those little tidbits of information. I wanted to explore with you the implications of some of these crazy tempo markings. There's so much more to be said, of course, about how to play this extraordinary music. The one thing I've not said here, of course, is why. Why does Messiaen write this extraordinarily slow movement? Well, these extraordinarily slow movements. Well, partly because he can, of course. But always one of the running themes in Messiaen's music is he's aiming towards eternity, towards God's new creation. And that isn't an absence of time so much as a completely different time. It's a different perception of time. It's God's time. And so those slow tempi and some of Messiaen's rhythmic games as well, I call them games, rhythmic processes in his compositions, they're always aimed to create a new time, if you like, or to emphasise this difference, to point us towards the new creation in some way. So that's why he writes these extremely slow pieces. And they're quite something to play. So if you have not played Le Banquet Céleste or one of the outer movements of L'Ascension, the third movement of La Nativité is a very slow piece that was on I think the grade 6 syllabus for the AB for a while. Have a go at playing one of these pieces, and it should probably go slower than you think. If it says très lent, maybe try quaver equals 52, like in Le Banquet Céleste. But just experiment and have some fun. It's great fun. It's great fun. Right. Anyway, look, that's enough from me. The next episode will be a little exploration, a cursory first attempt at an exploration of the Messe Le Pentecôte. So see you then for episode 17.